see what Elliott Hulse is up to. Today he's tackling an interesting subject, and that is the fact that he believes all women should do home births for their children. Now, I'm not a doctor, and neither is Elliott, fun fact, so you should talk to a doctor to get medical advice. And you know where doctors are? Hospitals. So I would highly recommend, if you are giving birth, go to a hospital. That way, if anything happens, you and the baby will hopefully be fine. Elliott has different opinions, though, so let's find out why.
Yo, Elliott, my wife gave birth to our son in a hospital after a pretty harrowing experience at the birth center. I have a deep fear of getting her pregnant again and giving birth at the hospital or home birthing, considering how the world is going right now. The hospital in Austin, Texas was great last year, but Austin will be the first place to adopt crazy vaccine rules. Do you have any advice or counsel on easing my concerns with this? So,
this guy is concerned about going into a hospital to give birth because of vaccine rules. So not only is he endangering the life of his child, the mom, and himself through not getting vaccinated, in order to continue putting them in danger, he also wants to have her give birth at home, which is inherently dangerous and has a much higher infant mortality rate and mortality rate for the person giving birth. Not good. Not good. Nick with 45-bit says, let me guess, he doesn't want another person seeing his wife's fagoo? Tucker White says, now, Hannah, maybe he's going to commence his comrade arc by noting it would put you into a shitload of debt. Nick says, my advice, if you're asking Elliott Hulse for advice, don't have kids. And Tucker White says, I spoke too soon.
I do. I mentioned earlier that I tend to be kind of ahead of the curve with a lot of things. And one of the things that I ventured into when my wife first got pregnant back in 2002 was natural childbirthing and home birthing.
Do not do this. This is the opposite of the head of the curve. This is being behind the curve. Human beings gave birth outside of hospitals for most of our existence. You know why we stopped doing that? Because so many of the babies and mothers fucking died. Do you understand why modern medicine is so important? Why it's impressive? And why, for instance, the birth rate has gone up and the death rate has gone down? Actually, I should just say population has gone off. The birth rate has actually stabled off and actually lowered a little bit in some areas. But our overall population has continued to blow up because the infant mortality rate is so low in developed countries. Elliott, do not tell people to give birth at home. You idiot. Speedy Yoshi says, thinking of the only King of the Hill episode I've seen where that one lady wants to give birth in a weird-ass birthing center, but Hank and Peggy try to convince her to please go to a hospital. Yeah, that was an episode of King of the Hill. Dr. Gamble says, just the one line.
You know another really good business? Teeny tiny baby coffins.
And Tea with Goblin says, look, home births are fine if you have an adequately trained doula or midwife and regular prenatal checkups, but birth is potentially very dangerous. I was a full breech baby, meaning that I was feet first instead of head first, born via C-section. If I had been a home birth like Elliott advocates, both my mother and I would likely have died. Yeah, there are so many factors that could happen. I would not recommend it. Don't do that. Don't do that. I can't tell you what to do at the end of the day. You know, I can't control you. I would highly, highly say don't do that if you value your life and the life of your potential child. Go to a hospital.
Because I became aware of the abuses and the trauma that's associated with giving birth in the medical industry. You know, for thousands of years, women gave birth without having doctors or having surgeons.
And many of a ridiculous percentage died. The person giving birth and the children died, you idiot. Rosalind Faye says the risk of infection in hospital birth is actually higher than home births. Guess what? Doesn't matter, the mortality rate's still fucking lower in hospitals. Artemis8192 says, I was 3 months premature. I barely survived in a specialist hospital.
Around, right? Like now the surgeon wants to be there. Why? Because they want to cut you open as soon as possible. I had my friend had the same experience.
If there are issues that require a cesarean section, yeah.
Where he was like, his wife wanted to have natural childbirth, but as soon as he got there, the doctor's like, well, you know, it's going to be a matter of time before we got to cut you open and take the baby out, right? Which is...
Nick says, you know what's also higher in hospital births than in home births? Treatments for infection. True.
Barbaric. There was no reason to cut the baby out except the fact that he had to get back to his golf game.
You're not that doctor, so I'm gonna call bullshit on that one. Your friend is probably stupid and wasn't listening when the doctor explained why, at this stage, it would be pertinent to do a C-section, or just didn't understand. Whatever. I very much doubt the doctor was just concerned with, oh, we gotta get this done. Whatever.
Right? So anyway, all my children are naturally birthed, 3 home births. I caught the children, right? Now, I am not an expert and I'm not a doctor, but we hired midwives, right? So we hired midwives. These are women who have a nursing degree, but they also have they have a leaning towards natural. They want you to have natural births, right? In the home. So we had a woman, she was there. Actually, she wasn't there. 2 of my children, I caught myself, but she was on the phone. She was on her way, right? Because my wife's labors were like that. It's like as soon as she felt like she was in labor, it was like, okay, countdown before the baby's here, right? It was quick. So a lot of times the midwife, it took a little while. But all my kids came out perfect, natural, normal, and it was just me and my wife at home.
You got very lucky, Elliot. There's a high chance your kid or your wife could have been hurt or killed. There could have been any number of issues. Giving advice to other people about this because you got lucky is incredibly irresponsible.
Right in the bedroom. Hey, here comes a baby. That's the way it's been done for thousands and thousands of years. Now, that's not to say that there weren't situations where a mother and a child or both died because they would have needed support.
No shit. Deadman XRPMX says, this seems appropriate.
You see that? That's a stupid bitch.
KR Goss says, also, since we perform C-sections now, people with small pelvises are able to pass on those genes to kids where they would have died before, so the kids can have small pelvises and both parents and baby can die. We are artificially selecting for a deadly genetic condition outside of the hospital. Mr. Sir Knight Kinyo says, I was born super early because I was dying. Without doctors to incubate me and keep me alive, I would have been gone. Stone Corbell says, I'm starting to hate the word natural. It's like the word toxin or freedom that have completely lost meaning because of the way idiots use them. I agree.
Well, that's why you have a midwife. And guess what? The midwife has the hospital on call, right? So if you must go to the hospital, I'm trying to get my screen focus back. If you must go to the hospital because it is legitimately an emergency, not just in case of shit, if it's a legitimately emergency, right, and the midwife has the hospital on call, well, then
I
you can
think
go.
in case of your family dying is a pretty good in case of reason to go to a hospital.
But I would never step foot in a hospital for something as normal and natural as childbirth, right? But I'm not just saying that because I'm a rebel, right? I'm saying that because I dove into the practice. I dove into the study of it. And so I'm going to share with you a couple of resources that I read. The minute I found out...
Plus, check it out. Look at that rad maul sword he has on the wall. If anything goes wrong, he can just cut her open. He can perform a home C-section with that bad boy.
My wife was pregnant. I started reading about this stuff. Here's a book called Male Practice.
Did you know that doctors also read more than you do at medical school?
See it there. Male practice.
Vast Lunacy says, if the midwives has the hospital on call, why not just cut out the provincial middleman? Yeah, it doesn't make a lot of sense, does it? Dr. Gamble says, this all seems sound. I often take advice from someone who has less medical credibility than the surgeon from Surgeon Simulator. I'll have you know, I'm pretty good at that game.
By Robert Mendelsohn. It's about how doctors manipulate women, right? It's an industry, right? The childbirth is an industry, right? They're making money. It's not because they have your best interest in mind.
This is a very America thing, isn't it? Elliot, it's almost like we should take the profit motive out of the healthcare system. Weird, right? Tea with Goblin says, a friend of mine is a midwife. And by the way, let me point this out. Your doctor does not get commission on what services you are treated with. Like my friend Randy, who I play D&D with every week. Really nice guy. He's a doctor. He does not want you to be charged exorbitant fees for his services. He doesn't care. He doesn't make money off of that. He doesn't get paid more if you get a bunch of unnecessary shit done to you. He's a doctor because he wants to help people. Don't get me wrong, I'm sure the fact that doctors get paid very well is nice, but it's a fixed salary. He doesn't get paid a commission for telling you, come into the hospital and I'll look at your broken bone or whatever. Tea with Goblins says, a friend of mine is a midwife who worked on 24/7 pregnancy birth hotlines meant to support people on remote properties who can't get to hospitals. She recounts one chap who called up because his wife was in labor with their 5th child. This one's a bit different than the others, he said. It's coming out head first. Oh, God. Oh, no.
Or that...
Thank you, wife of Moppy Muttons.
It's the best way to do it, right? Because one, for example, when you go to a hospital, they have the woman lay down this way and put her legs up to make the baby.
Yes, in nature, humans actually gave birth standing up, I'm pretty sure. They would, like, squat and give birth.
Come out, which is not natural.
Okay, if I was giving birth, I'm sitting my ass down. I'm not fucking squatting there. Sorry.
In fact, that is the wrong way.
Where does this doctor hate come from? I think it stems from an overall distrust of the educated. It comes from a deep-seated distrust of the educated, which I think comes from an insecurity about intelligence. People feel insecure that they are not as intelligent as people like doctors or scientists or whatever. And instead of just recognizing that, hey, people are skilled in different things, that person spent a lot of their life studying medicine, of course they know about that, they're an expert in that field, it affects them, like, personally and makes them feel bad about themselves. So instead of just recognizing that they probably have other skills that are different than a scientist or a doctor, they go, no, I can't just be different. I have to be better than them, obviously. So I have to act like their professional opinion is less valid or equally valid to my uneducated opinion. It's very stupid. I don't even get, like, right-wing people are absolutely decimating themselves right now with being anti-vax and this kind of dumb stuff. It's a really bad long-term play, but never interrupt your enemy when they're making a mistake, so I hope you and your audience have a lot of luck with this, Elliot. Procagam, thanks for tier 3 for 8 months, says, today is a good day, subiversary, and top of a leaderboard. Next month's birth is going to be legendary. Indeed it will be. We'll sing songs of it for generations.
Way, and I'm not a woman, right? But my wife has had babies. That's the wrong way for a woman to have baby. You don't lay down so the baby is like stuck up in your body, and then you gotta push to get the body down. No, you squat over, right? Here I am showing you how to give birth. The woman squats over. My wife leaned over the bed and squatted down. That's how my babies came out, right? Like, I don't want to make it like.
Remember that time when Elliot's kids came out and said that I don't know what pronouns to use, just because this is a weird situation. Elliot secondhand talked about how once one of his kids came to him and was like, hey, Dad, I think I'm trans. And Elliot just denied it and shut the kid down and didn't let the kid do anything about it. And I don't know how that kid is now. I hope that kid's okay. MMO Addicted, thanks for tier 2 for 20 months. I need to share my pain. I felt like doing my own Chud Watch, and I skipped through Sargon playing Vampire the Masquerade, with Arch playing Nazis, with one of them playing a lolly. I'm pretty sure Sargon made a joke about the age of consent. Sure he did. That's why I find Sargon being in D&D campaign is interesting, because your personal politics do come into playing D&D, just inevitably. Like, if you watch the D&D stream I do with myself, Actual Jake, Sarah, Randy, Alex, a lot of sort of lefty political stuff comes through in those characters, just because, you know, we're gonna tailor a narrative as we tell it to our own personal beliefs, because that's kind of how collective storytelling works. So if you watched only our D&D stream, you would absolutely see, oh, these people don't like, you know, unfair advantages for the rich and disadvantages for the poor, etc., etc. So someday I do want to actually watch the Sargon thing, just to see how much of his weird bullshit comes through. Rosalind Faye with 100 bits says, most hospitals let you birth in any position comfortable if there isn't a medical reason to make you lay. MMO Addicted says it was all over a fan art with a effing Brazzers logo superimposed. Why is it still on YouTube? What the F? Have I lost weight? I have. Thank you.
Like, you know, analogous to making a poop, but that's the way it is, right? Because you got to squeeze down, not lay back and squeeze up. Just that one thing alone, and I learned that by reading this book, that one thing alone made me like, oh, duh. They don't have your best interest in mind. They want to make it.
The fact that Elliott can't think for even 5 seconds, there might be another reason that that's the way that people give birth in hospitals in the United States. Not always, but, you know, historically, primarily, the laying down thing is mind-boggling to me that he thinks no one has ever thought of this before. Alex the Blight, thanks for 9 months with Prime. That's a sub-baby. This sub-baby is a home birth. This sub-baby's name is Gargantuan, Destroyer of Worlds. Welcome to the world, Gargantuan. Artemis8192 says, that's Dev, aka Short Fat Otaku. He's playing a 14-year-old because that was at the age of consent in Germany at the time. Oh, gross. MMO Addicted says, I mean, I'd love to suffer through it with y'all. It's certainly interesting, and I can't help you with Vampire the Masquerade lore and stuff if you want or can help. It'd be interesting. Hernandia Owl says, surprised Sargon would just play D&D given his name. He'd probably feel more at home with some kind of alternate history setting.
Hard for you to have the baby. Why? So they can charge you for a C-section. So they can charge you for extra drugs, right? My wife didn't use any pain medication. Why? Because the baby came out fast. Why did the baby come out fast? Because she wasn't laying on her back.
Elliott, the fact that you think these are like single factor events and that everyone who is giving birth is going to have the same exact experience illustrates exactly why you should not be any sort of, or acting as any sort of authority on these medical things. Elliott, different people giving birth have different experiences, even between births, even if it's the same person. Claiming that every person, if they're giving birth, all they have to do is stand up and squat and do that kind of birth, and they'll all have an easy, healthy time, or most of them will, just makes you sound stupid. Because you're stupid. Nick says, it came out fast because it came in fast. Ooh. Gareth the Khajiit says, I feel sorry for this guy's children and wife and basically everyone who knows him. Speedy Yoshi says, they don't just be like, okay, we're gonna cut you open now because we want more money. It's dumb. Aren't C-sections more dangerous than normal births? I couldn't speak to that. Again, because I'm not a doctor.
She was squatting down so that the baby can be pushed down, right? So there are all kinds of wrong things that they do in the hospital that make it so that there's trauma. You have a traumatized experience in the hospital, and obviously you had some harrowing experiences because children aren't meant to be born in the hospital. It's good that the hospital's there. Don't get me wrong.
What do you mean children aren't meant to be born in a hospital? According to who?
It's good that there are medical professionals if something goes wrong. But going to the hospital makes shit go wrong.
That's a really stupid and dangerous sentiment.
You see that? Do you see how that works? Come here so that you need us, rather than you need us so you come here.
Yeah, because if it's an emergency situation, it's better to already be at the hospital, Elliot.
Do you see? You see the slight trickery? But anyway, read the book, right? Male practice. And then this guy...
Leo Perdo, thanks for 4 months, says, happy 4 months, Hannah. I'm lost for words with Elliot. This is sad. I know.
I ended up buying all his books because he was such a G in that book. He's got another book called Confessions of a Medical Heretic. Robert Mendelsohn, Mendelsohn. And then How to Raise a Healthy Doctor, How to Raise a Healthy Child in Spite of Your Doctor. I read all this guy's books. And this first book might even be out of print. It looks like it's very old, but it's still here on Amazon. Don't take my word for it.
We might be seeing natural selection at work here. I tend to agree.
I don't pretend to be an expert, but I am a...
You are literally pretending to be an expert. This is a show where you come on and people ask for your advice and you give it. As an expert. What? What do you mean you're not pretending to be an expert? You're giving medical advice. That's so stupid. Nick says, surprise, surprise, he was anti-vax. Oh, the guy that he's talking about? Speak the Truth with 45-bit says, my nephew was born via correction because whenever my sister pushed, his heart rate dropped to dangerous levels and her heartbeat rose to equally disastrous levels, or dangerous levels rather. Vast Lunacy with 70-bit says, my grandmother has this same belief. Her sister died on the operating table for a stomach obstruction, and my grandmother swears that the doctors essentially made it up just to diagnose stuff. People have such weird coping mechanisms. It sucks so much.
I'm a concerned father.
Can you report this? If you want to, that's up to you.
I'm a concerned parent. I'm concerned about my wife. I'm concerned about our children. So what does someone who's concerned do? They consult. I consult these books. Colleen and I took natural childbirthing classes. You know that? We took Bradley classes, right? Bradley natural birthing classes. Bradley natural birthing classes, not Lamaze. Lamaze is a joke. Bradley natural birthing classes teach you everything about how to legitimately have that baby.
Does it teach you how to deal with it if your wife starts bleeding profusely and is dying? Do you have a blood supply and a way to close, like, wounds easily, Elliot? Do you know how to do that? If, like the chatter mentioned, your wife or the baby's heart rates go crazy, do you have any way of monitoring that? Or correcting it if something is going wrong? Kinda doubt it. Creepy Doll in the Wall says, as a person who came from a controlling cult and felt less than for having to give birth at a hospital when I was a teenager, fuck this guy. Catherine CD, thanks for 10 months. Tea with Goblins says, yes, by all means, be fearful and antagonistic towards trained medical professionals, or they'll try to, checks notes, give you pain relief during the agony of childbirth and administer vaccines that prevent deadly diseases. Solid logic.
At home, naturally. Lamaze just teaches you how to breathe so that you don't need drugs, which is good. That's one part of it. But ultimately, we got to go back to nature. We got to go back to the way things should always.
Nature sucks. I don't know if you know this. We invented inside because nature is an unforgiving bitch. Elliot, almost nothing humans do is natural. It doesn't fucking mean anything. Bloodwine says, look, babe, I know you want medical care, but if the doctor's here, then I'm not the alpha. I'm sure you understand.
Always were, right? Again, I don't want people to think, oh, Elliot is archaic and doesn't respect modern inventions and
it's literally that's what you're doing. You can't just do a thing and then say, I don't want you to say I'm doing thing. You are doing thing. You can't just lampshade it by going, no, I'm not doing thing. but thing. You're doing the thing.
and modern progress. No, that's not the
Stone Corbell says, Elliot, you'll never experience the pain of childbirth. You have no right to tell people giving birth that they shouldn't take pain meds. Agree?
case at all. We have just made that our God. And as a result, we've fallen prey to all kinds of bad things, right? Like just, it don't, man, sometimes I'm not a smart man. I never, man, sometimes I'm not a smart man. I never did well in school. I'm not a smart man. I never did well in school. Sometimes I'm not a smart man. I never did well in school. But I could just see certain things that people take for granted, and I'm like,
his name is Elliott Hulse. Elliott Hulse. He is he started his channel as and this is something he actually knows about, weightlifting. Basically teaching people how to do weight training, getting the most out of their workouts, bulking up, all sorts of stuff that I don't care about, but, he seems good at that. And then he started slowly but surely turning into this chud conspiracy bullshit. So now not only does he tell people, how to get gains, but now this channel is mostly just him doing, culture, warrior, right-wing weird shit. It's very strange.
I don't know. That just don't seem right to me, right? And then the whole idea, right? Just think about this. Babies will come down. I already did this, so I'm just kind of reiterating. The babies will come down. Why am I laying up?
Why do women give birth laying down? I need a site that's not like a creepy medical bullshit site, like a natural news thing. Moira Soma says, one of my friends was born with her umbilical cord wrapped around her throat. If she wasn't born at the hospital, she would be dead. It's a video. I don't want a whole thing. Oh, I just read that one. Sorry. To help keep their strength up. It's got to be a more specific reason than that. I don't know, though. I would assume that the doctors know better than Elliot.
Something don't add up. And what doesn't add...
Oh, yeah, epidurals, too. If you get, an epidural or something that completely blocks, your spinal feeling from the waist down, gonna be difficult to stand up.
Add up is that they don't have your best interest in mind, right? As soon as your baby comes out of the vagina, you know what they want to do? Whisk it away and give it all kinds of shots, put shit in its eyes.
Yeah, to make sure it doesn't get infections and shit, you weirdo.
Right? They do all kinds of weird things to your baby.
Weird things that help prevent your child from dying. You know what's very natural? High infant mortality rates, Elliot. Not everything that's natural is good. A bear mauling you to death is theoretically natural. It's not good.
You don't know anything about when they take the baby away. But even a dog, even a cow, I have cows. You don't take the baby away from the mama right away, right? Why do they do that to us?
Cows' lives are less valuable than human lives to humans.
Why is it that as soon as the baby comes out in the hospital, they whisk the baby away so the baby...
To make sure the baby is okay.
has no bonding time with the mother. As soon as my baby...
And once they do the check and stuff, yeah, they usually do skin-to-skin contact stuff.
came out, we laid it right on their mother's chest, and the baby start feeding right there. First thing the baby does is this, right? And so as the baby's doing this, the mom is right there. Oh,
are you supposed to feed your baby seconds or minutes after they're born? Are there any actual doctors in chat?
to suckle. But you take that baby off and the baby's doing this, and all the baby sees is bright lights in its eyes, and some
Bumble Homestead says, I do not like it when he makes that noise. KR Goss says, if your baby is born breathing and alert, then immediately give the baby to mom now. I think this was in the 1980s that he's thinking of.
stranger jabbing it with needles. It's like, what the fuck what kind of introduction to life is this? That's why so many people are traumatized. People are traumatized because of that birth experience, right? And the whole C-section thing. Do you know that 90% of C-sections are not necessary? But they're profitable.
Where is that statistic coming from, Elliot? Tea with Goblin says, okay, last birth story. My sister was born in a very rare way when my mom waters didn't break, so she was born in the placenta and the nurse had to break her up like a packet of chips. They used to call it being born in the caul. And in the old days, it was a sign that the baby was a witch.
Right? They want to cut your wife open. You go to the hospital, they want to cut your wife open ASAP. That's the first thing on their mind is.
No, it is not, Elliot. Again, why do you think hospitals pay doctors to, like, upsell you? That's not how this works. They don't get a commission.
How quickly can we get this woman to buy our surgery, to buy our technique, right? Sure, there's medical techniques, but I don't have to buy every single one. I don't have to be a customer for everything, but the medical industry makes it such that they make you think that you need their stuff. No, I don't need your stuff. Why do I need your stuff? Why do I need you to help me do something natural? Right? This is a natural thing. This is a normal thing. This has happened since day one. Jesus was born in the manger, right?
I'm just putting this out there. In Norse mythology, Loki gives birth because he turns into a horse or something and gets fucked by a horse. Does that make getting fucked by a horse natural because it happened in someone's mythology? Like, what? What is this standard? Let's look at the infant mortality rate in Jerusalem in 1 BC or AD. Hydrate. Sky Comet Fallen says, psst, your problem is capitalism.
He didn't need a surgeon there, right? Mary didn't need a surgeon there.
Yeah, didn't Zeus turn into a goose and fuck a lady? Should ladies be fucking geese to try and get pregnant now?
Cut her belly open just in case, right? Anyway, so I'm just kind of in a ranting mood here. My opinion is, don't let this stop you from having more children, but educate yourself. The problem with people today is that they don't know, right? Didn't God say something to the effect of, my people suffer for they do not know? People suffer because they don't know. And part of the reason they don't know is because we live in a brainwashed culture, right? And they've been teaching us all kinds of wrong think for the past, 6 generations.
Arbitrary number he pulled out of his asshole. And our Nandy Owl says, and Odin just used Loki's son as his personal mount. Rosalind Faye says, a swan, and it was his sister, future wife. Lovely. Isn't mythology great?
Not only do we have common sense, not only can we think, right? Something don't look right. Trust yourself when something don't look right, but we live in the age of information. If something don't seem right, go and do some research. People will do all kinds of research about dumb stuff. I'm going to buy a new car. I know people that will spend money.
Oh, sorry, Sky Comet Fallen. Sky Comet Fallen said, no, I read that one.
Months researching cars. What kind of engine they want, what kind of transmission, all kinds of aerodynamics, and then they do all the extras.
If I didn't want to do that research or was incapable of doing it, you know who I would go ask? Someone who has spent their whole life studying that, like a mechanic. Just like I would take someone to a doctor if they were giving birth.
List for a car. But you get your wife pregnant and you just say, well, okay, I'll see you at the hospital. What? Learn the things that are important. We spend so much time learning dumb stuff. How about back to nature, learning how to do things that our ancestors always knew how to do, right? Give birth. I was reading about I think it was a book called Wrath of Grapes or something like that. Grapes of Wrath.
The Grapes of Wrath.
I don't remember who the author was. It was like a classic book. It was about a Chinese couple that were living on the land somewhere. And in the story, I was so shocked. I read this when I was like in my early 20s. The woman was, she was out working in the field, right? Like the ox was pulling the plow and she was like riding the plow or something. And she was pregnant. She was like 9 months pregnant. And it was John Steinbeck. I don't know if it was Grapes of Wrath, Lucas, but it was John Steinbeck, one of his books.
Elliot, you're not supposed to look at her having to labor intensely at 9 months pregnant and go, good for her, what a boss babe. How do you so fundamentally miss the point? The point didn't even go over his head. Its trajectory was entirely in the opposite direction of him.
It might have been Grapes of Wrath. And there was a scene in the book where the woman's, she's working. Right? She got to do work. You got to work. And
you're not supposed to think this is reasonable. Tucker White says, back to nature. Is this the beginning of Elliott's anarcho-primitivist arc?
And she squats down. The baby comes out. She cleans off the baby, wraps her up, boom, boom. And that's it. I think she may even went back to work.
That's supposed to be a bad thing, Elliot. Holy fucking shit. How do you miss the point of a book so hard? Nernandia Owl says, Hulse, we live at a time where you can find all the information you need. Also, Hulse, I'm really stupid and proud of it. Mike Mack says, if we go back to nature, you'll be out of the job, Elliot. Tea with Goblin says, okay, Elliot, but until very recently, women died in droves giving birth. During the Victorian era, it was common for pregnant women to sew their burial gowns before their due dates. Excuse me, because they knew that there was a decent chance they wouldn't survive giving birth. Modern medicine is a good thing. Agreed.
Right? Or Mice and Men. I don't know, but I just remember reading a book like that. But
Of Mice and Men is a... whatever.
She was just going about her life like it was a normal thing. It was a normal thing. She didn't need the ambulance. She didn't need...
This would be like reading 1984 and being like, man, Big Brother's great, isn't it? This man fundamentally didn't understand the main point of a book he apparently read the entirety of.
10 doctors around her and someone with a scalpel ready to cut her open. She just knew what to do. She just squatted down and gave birth to that baby. Right? I know there are going to be people like, Elliot, you don't know anything about being a woman. You have no interest saying that. Oh, okay. I don't know anything about women and I have no place saying that. But then why do you go to a male-dominated profession, right?
This isn't necessarily about your gender or sex or anything, Elliot. I'm more just concerned that you're not a doctor. Nick says, not gonna lie, Elliott Hulse is low-key one of the most evil chuds we cover. His lack of influence, relatively speaking, I don't know. His videos don't get nearly as many views as a lot of the other people we cover, so I don't know if I agree.
All these men. That's why the book is called Male Practice. I told you. Why? This is so funny. Women were so quick to tell a man who has his wife or his friend's best interest in mind about, something with regard to women. You have no right saying that. But the first thing they're going to do is go to a hospital. There's what? It's all men. It's all men that look at you like a customer. How much?
Again, the doctors don't get commission, Elliot. That's not how it works. Hydrate. H. Baird. Spoiler alert, the baby in Grapes of Wrath was stillborn and the mother uses her breast milk to try to save a man dying of starvation. No, but as far as Elliott's concerned, that's all natural, so it's great. Thanks, John Steinbeck. Clearly, John Steinbeck was writing about aspirational living, right? When he wrote Grapes of Wrath. Sky Comet Fallen says, Elliott, my OBGYN is a woman.
Can we charge the insurance company for all this? Right? How quickly can we get her onto the chopping block? The name of the book, some of you guys are asking me, is Male Practice. M-A-L-E. You see that? M-A-L-E Practice. How Doctors Manipulate Women. Old book by Dr. Robert.
That's funny, too, because I'm pretty sure OBGYN departments are one section of the medical field that is dominated by women. Like, people who specialize in OBGYN are more likely women than not, if I remember correctly. I'd have to look up that stat, but... Tucker White says, let's be fair, Hannah, understanding a book requires something Americans hate doing. Reading.
Mendelsohn, MD. So, you know, that's one good place to begin. And you can go down the rabbit hole from there, dude. Hope that helps. Done.
Yo, it's your bro, Elliott. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did,
Elliott is just the worst. It's so weird, too, because at the end of the day, that's not hurting me. It's hurting him and his audience. He is actively selecting out his audience on a small scale from the population with this advice. This, like, cult of stupidity and I know better than experts is... It's like a suicide cult. It's nuts. Anyway, let's move on.